Ancient Egypt, the land of the pharaohs, is well famous for its colossal pyramids, its bandaged mummies, and its grand golden treasures. From the boy king's glitzy tomb to the Rosetta Stone, which unlocked the forgotten language of ancient Egypt, to papyri holding medical and magical spells, there seems to be no end to what Egypt has kept buried beneath its sands. And in this video, we'll be looking at the 15 incredible artifacts discovered beneath Egypt, artifacts that reveal just how much of ancient Egypt has been lost and remembered over thousands of years. Before we move on, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, make sure you do. Number 15, Sabu Disk. The ancient propeller, the Sabu Disk, is one of the most intriguing puzzles from ancient Egypt because, according to everything we know about the people who built the pyramids, they were never supposed to make something like this. This mysterious artifact was found in 1936 by Walter Emery while excavating the first dynasty tomb of an Egyptian official named Sabu at Saqqara. Grave robbers had already stripped away the gold and jewelry centuries earlier, but they left behind something legendary. It had been broken into pieces, and once it was put back together, it didn't look like the bowls or jars normally found in Egyptian tombs. Instead, it measured about 2 feet across and featured 3 paper-thin, curved blades carved from a single block of fragile metasiltstone. That's the part that still leaves archaeologists wondering. Why spend so much effort creating a shape unlike anything else in ancient Egypt? Some researchers believe it held sacred oils or offerings for the afterlife. Others aren't convinced. Nearly 90 years after its discovery, the Sabu Disk is still one of Egypt's most unusual and least understood artifacts. Number 14, the Book of Two Ways in ancient Egypt. Death wasn't considered the end of the journey. In many ways, it was only the beginning. Beyond the grave, every soul faced a dangerous path filled with trials before it could finally reach Rostau, the holy realm of Osiris, the god who ruled over the dead. This book was believed to help them get there. The Book of Two Ways is the oldest illustrated book on this planet, and before anything, let's clear it, this book wasn't a book in the modern sense. But its maps, prayers, and spells were painted inside coffins, giving the dead a guide through one of the most dangerous journeys they would ever face. The text describes 2 separate routes to the afterlife, one by land and another by water, both filled with walls of fire, hostile spirits, and demons standing between the dead and eternal life. But the most incredible part isn't the story itself. In 2012, archaeologists excavating a burial shaft at Deir el-Bersha discovered the cedar coffin of a high-status woman named Ankh. Inside were some of the oldest known passages from the Book of Two Ways, preserved for nearly 4,000 years. Curiously, although the coffin belonged to a woman, every instruction calls her he. Well, that's because the dead were believed to become one with Osiris. And in death, everyone took on the identity of the god himself. Number 13. Rosetta Stone. The artifact that changed history without this stone. It was impossible to read a single word left behind by the ancient Egyptians. That's easy to forget today, because hieroglyphs look so familiar. They're printed in books, carved onto souvenirs, and recognized all over the world. But for well over 1,000 years, no one knew what those symbols meant. Then, almost by accident, it changed. In 1799, while French soldiers were strengthening an old fort near the Egyptian town of Rosetta, one of them found a black stone that had been reused as part of the fort's wall. It wasn't covered in pictures alone. The exact same decree appeared 3 times, once in hieroglyphs, once in Demotic, and once in ancient Greek. Since Greek could already be read, scholars finally had something real to compare instead of making blind guesses. Then, years later, Jean-François Champollion successfully deciphered the hieroglyphs, opening the door to thousands of inscriptions that had remained silent for centuries. Ironically, the stone that gave the world ancient Egypt no longer belongs to Egypt. After Napoleon's defeat, Britain took it under the Treaty of Alexandria, and it has remained in the British Museum ever since, despite Egypt repeatedly asking for its return. Number 12. The mystery of the bird mummy's well. For ancient Egyptians, the journey to meet their holy gods rarely came empty-handed. If someone wanted to ask for good health, protection, or a blessing, they often brought an offering with them. And one of the most common was a mummified bird, especially the sacred ibis, an animal closely associated with Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, and knowledge. Over the centuries, millions of these birds were carefully wrapped in linen and placed inside temples and tombs across Egypt. But that created a mystery archaeologists still argue about today. Where did all those birds come from? For decades, most experts believe the Egyptians raised enormous numbers of ibises in captivity, much like modern poultry farms. Then, in 2019, taken from dozens of ibis mummies pointed in a different direction. Instead of looking like birds bred together for generations, their genetic diversity closely matched wild populations. If they weren't being farmed, then how did the Egyptians manage to collect millions of sacred birds for centuries without exhausting the wild flocks? That's a question that still puzzles Egyptologists. Number 11. The Dendera Zodiac. Nowadays, we have giant observatories, powerful telescopes, and computers that can map the universe in incredible detail. But more than 2,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians were already studying the night sky in ways that still surprise historians. One of the best examples is the Dendera Zodiac, an incredible stone carving that once decorated the ceiling of the Temple of Hathor. Rather than showing only Egyptian gods, it combines constellations, planets, zodiac signs, and religious symbols into a single celestial map, revealing just how much Greek and Egyptian knowledge had become intertwined during the Ptolemaic period. For centuries, priests looked up at this remarkable ceiling inside the temple at Dendera. Then, in 1821, it was cut from the roof and taken to France, where King Louis VI bought it after France had lost the Rosetta Stone to Britain. Today, the original remains in the Louvre, while a replica marks its place in Egypt. But one question has never really gone away. Was it legally removed or blasted? Number 10. The bust of Queen Nefertiti. If Cleopatra is remembered for her beauty, sharp mind, and crazy charm, Queen Nefertiti has fascinated historians for more than 3,000 years for much the same reason. We mean, even after her death, her face is still famous around the world. In 1912, German archaeologist Ludwig Borchert was excavating the ancient city of Amarna when his team found a painted limestone bust unlike anything they had seen before. The colors were still vivid, the features almost lifelike, and one detail immediately stood out: the left eye had never been fitted with its quartz inlay, leading historians to wonder whether the sculpture had been left unfinished inside the workshop of the royal artist Thutmose. But the discovery itself wasn't the end of the story. The real controversy began the following year when Borchardt took the bust out of Egypt and shipped it to Germany. Egypt has argued for years that the artifact was removed by deception, while Germany insists the export was completely legal under the excavation agreement. But no matter who owns this masterpiece, one mystery remains. Why was the left eye never finished? Number 9. The Golden Mask of General Wenja Bouwenjed. When people think of ancient Egyptian gold masks, one name usually comes to mind: Tut. But Egypt was home to more than just one magnificent funerary mask. Hidden inside the royal necropolis of Tanis, archaeologist Pierre Montet found the burial of a man named Wenja Bouwenjed. one of the highest-ranking military commanders during the reign of Pharaoh Susens I. Covering his face was a beautifully crafted mask made from solid gold, with brows and eyes carefully inlaid using colored glass paste to give it an almost lifelike expression. Even the ears weren't perfectly matched, a small detail that gave the face a surprising sense of realism. His tomb held far more than the mask alone. Gold and silver bowls, bracelets, rings, amulets, canopic jars, dozens of Ushapti figures, and a lapis lazuli image of the god Amun were placed around his burial. But, for all the wealth buried beside him, very little is known about the man himself. His titles reveal he stood among Egypt's most powerful generals. But much of his life has disappeared from history, leaving his remarkable golden mask to tell the story instead. Number 8. Clay artifacts found in King Tut's tomb. The ancient Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun, aka the Boy King, was buried with so much gold and treasure that when Howard Carter opened his burial chamber in 1922, his own words were, "Wonderful things." Everywhere he looked were objects fit for a king: golden shrines, chariots, jewelry, alabaster vessels, and the famous nested coffins that would make Tut known around the world. But among all that wealth were 4 plain clay trays that hardly seemed worth a second glance. Carter believed they were nothing more than simple bases for 4 golden staffs, and that explanation stood for over a century. Then Egyptologist Nicholas looked at them again and noticed something didn't add up. The trays were too small to support the staffs. He believes they were used during an ancient funerary ceremony known as the Awakening of Osiris, where water or sacred liquids may have been poured around the king's coffin to symbolically restore life. If Nicholas is right, those overlooked pieces of clay were never ordinary objects. They may have been among the most meaningful artifacts buried beside Egypt's most famous pharaoh. Number 7. The Egyptian woman with hair extensions. Hair extensions might seem like a modern beauty trend, but Egyptian women were wearing them more than 3,000 years ago. Archaeologists working at the ancient city of Amarna, built by Pharaoh Akhenaten, made a discovery that completely changed what historians thought they knew about beauty in ancient Egypt. Inside one burial, they found the remains of a woman whose hairstyle was unlike anything uncovered before. More than 70 separate hair extensions had been carefully woven into her own hair, arranged in different layers to create an elaborate style. She wasn't the only surprise. Other burials revealed tightly braided hair, ringlets curled around the ears, and even extensions made from hair belonging to different people. In several cases, a fatty substance had been used to hold the hairstyles together, while one elderly woman had dyed her gray hair a reddish-orange color using henna. Whether these ancient hairstyles were prepared for some kind of burial or worn in everyday life is still debated. Number 6. The Tarkhan Dress. Ancient Egypt was not just about mummies and magic. It was also home to ordinary people who woke up every morning, got dressed, went to work, and lived lives not so different from our own. That's exactly why the Tarkhan Dress is such an extraordinary discovery. Unearthed in 1913 from the Tarkhan Cemetery, about 40 miles south of Cairo, the linen garment was tossed into a storage box with dozens of other textile fragments and forgotten for decades because it looked like nothing more than an old rag. It wasn't until 2015, after radiocarbon testing, that researchers realized they were looking at the oldest woven garment ever discovered, dating back more than 5,000 years. Even more surprising is how familiar it looks. The surviving upper half still shows carefully sewn sleeves, fine pleats, a V-shaped neckline, and an elegant design that wouldn't seem completely out of place today. There are even worn patches and stains beneath the arms, clear signs that someone actually lived in it rather than wearing it only for burial. Number 5. The Palermo stone history books don't write themselves. Someone has to record what happened, and in ancient Egypt, that job may have started with the Palermo stone. This remarkable black basalt fragment is one of the oldest surviving historical records ever discovered. Although it surfaced in Palermo, Italy in 1877, the inscription itself was carved in Egypt more than 4,000 years ago. What makes it so valuable isn't its size, but what was written on it. The stone lists the rulers of Egypt's earliest dynasties along with details about floods, religious festivals, taxes, temple building, and important events from each king's reign. One entry even claims that Pharaoh Sneferu returned from Nubia with 7,000 prisoners and 2,000 cattle after a military campaign. Whether those numbers were accurate, or simply made the king look more powerful, is something historians still debate. The surviving piece is only a fraction of the original monument, which may have stretched nearly 6 feet in length. Even broken, it remains one of the few surviving records that tell the story of Egypt's earliest pharaohs in their own time. Number 4. The Egyptian sarcophagus of Israel. For thousands of years, Egypt's greatest discoveries have come from the tombs and deserts along the Nile. That's why no one expected one of its most incredible coffins to turn up in Israel instead. The discovery happened during excavations for a natural gas pipeline in the Jezreel Valley, where archaeologists found a 3,300-year-old clay sarcophagus buried with a complete skeleton and a collection of grave goods. The coffin itself looked unmistakably Egyptian. Its lid was shaped like a human figure, complete with crossed hands, carefully carved facial features, and the same style seen on the sarcophagi of Egyptian pharaohs. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Resting beside the skeleton was a rare gold-mounted scarab ring bearing the name of Pharaoh Seti I, the ruler who conquered this region during the 13th century BC. Was the man inside an Egyptian official serving far from home, or a powerful Canaanite honored with an Egyptian burial? Archaeologists believe the answer may still be hidden inside his dina. Number 3. The Luxor obelisk. Like Cleopatra's Needles, the Luxor obelisk was never meant to stand alone. During the reign of Ramesses II, 2 identical red granite obelisks were raised at the entrance of Luxor Temple, where they stood side by side for almost 3,000 years. Then, in the 19th century, their story took a very unexpected turn. In 1829, Egypt's ruler, Muhammad Ali Pasha, offered the pair to France. It sounded like a generous gift, but transporting monuments weighing more than 200 tons was far easier on paper than in real life. After years of planning, French engineers managed to remove only one. It finally reached Paris in 1833 and was erected in Place de la Concorde 3 years later. The second obelisk never followed. The cost, the engineering, and the effort proved too much, and France eventually gave up its claim in 1981. Strangely enough, Egypt got a replacement gift in return, which was a public clock for Cairo that barely worked. Number 2. The ivory headrest of Tutankhamun. Now, a pillow doesn't sound like something that belongs among the greatest treasures of ancient Egypt. But the boy king's headrest was never meant to be an ordinary place to rest his head. When Howard Carter uncovered Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, surrounded by mountains of gold and priceless treasures, this beautifully carved ivory object was found among the items prepared for the young pharaoh's journey into the afterlife. At first, it looks surprisingly simple. But then the details begin to stand out. 2 lions face opposite directions, representing the east and the west, while between them stands the god Shu, the deity who separated the sky from the earth. To the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't decoration. It was a picture of creation itself. The pharaoh's head symbolized the rising sun, the lions marked the horizon, and Shu supported the heavens, allowing the sun to rise again every morning. That's why many Egyptologists believe this headrest carried a promise far greater than comfort. As the sun was reborn each dawn, Tutankhamun, too, was expected to awaken and begin a brand new life beyond death. Number 1. The ancient Egyptian schoolboy's lesson homework has probably never been anyone's favorite part of growing up. But one Egyptian schoolboy unknowingly left behind something that would survive for nearly 18 centuries. In 2019, curators at the British Library brought a small writing tablet out of storage for the first time in decades. At first, it didn't look particularly special. Across its surface, a child's uneven handwriting followed neat lines written by a teacher, looking almost like a classroom exercise from today. The difference was its age. The tablet had been written nearly 1,800 years ago, when Egypt was part of the Roman Empire. Instead of copying random letters, the boy was practicing Greek by writing short pieces of advice, including a warning to stay away from bad company and to seek wisdom from educated people. Greek, not Egyptian, was the language expected of educated families at the time, which explains why an Egyptian child was learning it in school. This classroom exercise offers a very personal glimpse into ancient Egypt, reminding us that long before phones and notebooks, children still worried about homework. Well, that's all from us. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon.